Lake Lanier covers nearly 38,000 acres of Georgia land, hiding a dark history of forced displacement and submerged ruins beneath its deceptively peaceful, emerald green surface. Local residents recently witnessed the water levels drop significantly, revealing cracked asphalt roads and stone foundations that once belonged to a thriving town destroyed 7 decades ago. These eerie structures represent more than just architectural debris, because they serve as silent witnesses to a community that was systematically erased from the map by the federal government. Beneath the waves lie forgotten grandstands of old speedways and the skeletal remains of family homes where people once built lives before the massive floodgates were finally closed shut. Today, over 5 million people depend on this reservoir for their daily survival, while remaining blissfully unaware of the drowned graveyard resting quietly just beneath their expensive recreational boats. Mysterious disappearances and unexplained accidents occur frequently on these waters, leading many to believe that the spirits of the displaced are still seeking justice from the depths below. Investigative divers report seeing ancient trees with jagged branches reaching upward like skeletal fingers, ready to trap anyone who ventures too deep into the murky shadows of the lake. Authorities spent several years relocating 20 separate cemeteries before the valley was flooded, yet thousands of unmarked graves were left behind to be consumed by the rising tide forever. The chilling reality of this man-made disaster is often hidden by glossy tourism brochures that promote the lake as a premier destination for summer, fun, and family vacations. As the severe drought of 2024 continues to parch the region, the ghosts of the past are beginning to emerge from their watery tomb for the entire world. National archives contain classified documents revealing that the construction of the Buford Dam was driven by political greed rather than the simple necessity of providing clean drinking water. Every time the water level recedes by 10 feet, the remains of a stolen heritage become visible once again, reminding us that some secrets cannot stay buried underwater. Please subscribe to our channel right now to uncover more hidden truths and join us as we dive deeper into the darkest mysteries surrounding the infamous Lake Lanier today. The United States Congress officially authorized the construction of Buford Dam in 1946, primarily for flood control and the generation of hydroelectric power for the surrounding region. Federal documents from that era reveal that providing drinking water for the city of Atlanta was never part of the original legal mandate approved by the national government. Despite the lack of legal authorization, local leaders moved forward with a massive engineering project that would eventually transform the entire landscape of northern Georgia forever. To make room for the rising water, the government forcibly displaced over 700 families and destroyed more than 50,000 acres of privately owned farmland and forests. Laborers worked tirelessly to clear the valley, but they only cut the upper branches of the trees, leaving thousands of thick trunks standing like invisible spears beneath the surface. These submerged forests now create a deadly maze that entangles boat propellers and traps swimmers in a cold grip from which there is often no possible escape. While officials claim to move every grave from the 20 cemeteries in the area, many local families believe that hundreds of souls were left behind in unmarked locations. Atlanta Mayor William Hartsfield personally traveled to Washington many times to lobby politicians for the funds necessary to build this controversial dam without paying a single cent. The city of Atlanta essentially gambled its entire future on a water source that was legally owned by the federal government rather than the citizens who were drinking it. As the urban population exploded from 1 million to over 5 million residents, the reliance on Lake Lanier became a dangerous dependency that no political leader could easily reverse. Georgia officials quietly diverted water from the reservoir for decades, assuming that the rain would always fall and the federal government would never bother to check the legal print. This massive expansion turned a rural valley into the primary life support system for one of the wealthiest metropolitan areas in the entire United States within a few decades. The hidden cost of this rapid growth was a growing vulnerability to natural cycles that the engineers of the 1950s never fully considered during their initial planning phases. Neighboring states began to notice the decreasing flow of the river downstream, sparking a legal battle that would last for more than 35 years in the highest federal courts. By the time the legal reality finally caught up with the city, Millions of people were already completely trapped in a system that was never designed to sustain them. The stage was set for a catastrophic confrontation between a growing, thirsty city and a natural world that refused to provide an infinite supply of life-giving water. The record-breaking drought of 2007 stripped the region of its water supply, forcing officials to confront the terrifying possibility that the entire city might actually run dry. Meteorological reports indicated that rainfall across northern Georgia had plummeted to nearly 0% of the historical average during the peak months of that scorched and dusty autumn season. Engineers watched the digital monitors in silence as the lake surface dropped to 1,050.79 feet, which was more than 20 feet below the normal level. As the blue water receded, the physical remnants of the flooded valley began to resurface like ghosts, including the sun-bleached concrete foundations of the long-abandoned Gainesville Looper Speedway racing track. Calculations performed by state hydrologists revealed that the metropolitan area had fewer than 90 days of water remaining before the intake pipes would draw nothing but thick and toxic mud. If the main reservoir reached a dead pool status, the city of Atlanta would possess only 3 days of emergency reserves to sustain the lives of 5 million thirsty citizens. Governor Sonny Perdue stood on the steps of the state capitol building and led a public prayer for rain because every technological solution had failed to solve the crisis. Strict emergency regulations prohibited residents from watering their lawns or washing their cars as the government desperately tried to stretch every remaining gallon of water for essential human survival. Local restaurants stopped serving glasses of water unless customers explicitly requested them, while public fountains across the city were silenced to save the dwindling resources of the parched Lake Lanier. This period of extreme scarcity created a palpable sense of anxiety among the population as they realized that their modern urban life depended entirely on a single and shrinking reservoir. The exposed lakebed became a vast wasteland of discarded tires and rusted metal, proving that the paradise people enjoyed was actually built upon a foundation of industrial debris. While the city faced total collapse, a sudden and massive tropical storm system finally arrived in late 2009 to temporarily replenish the basin and save the region. Despite the narrow escape from total disaster, the underlying structural issues remained completely unaddressed as the local government quickly returned to their previous patterns of unchecked and unsustainable growth. Most citizens forgot the terror of the 90-day countdown almost immediately after the fountain started flowing again, illustrating a dangerous cycle of complacency that continues to threaten Georgia. Scientists warned that the 2007 crisis was merely a dress rehearsal for much more severe climate events that would eventually challenge the limits of human engineering. The skeletal remains of the speedway eventually vanished beneath the waves once more, waiting for the next great drought to pull back the curtain on Atlanta's fragile water supply. These recurring patterns of history demonstrate that nature always reclaims its territory, regardless of how many massive concrete dams or legal documents human beings attempt to build. Understanding the severity of the 2007 crisis is essential for anyone who wishes to predict the inevitable outcome of the next major water shortage. Please subscribe to our channel to stay informed about these critical environmental issues and help us bring more important stories like this to light for everyone around the world. In 1990, the state of Alabama filed a federal lawsuit against the United States Army Corps of Engineers to stop Georgia from diverting massive amounts of water from Lake Lanier. Florida eventually joined the legal battle to protect the Apalachicola Bay because the reduced water flow from the upstream reservoir was destroying their multi-million-dollar oyster industry and local ecosystem. Georgia argued that the economic survival of 5 million people in the Atlanta metropolitan area outweighed the environmental and commercial concerns of the downstream states during periods of severe drought. A federal judge issued a shocking ruling in 2009 that declared Atlanta's use of the lake for drinking water was an unauthorized and illegal diversion of federal resources. The court gave the state of Georgia a strict deadline of 3 years to reach a new agreement with its neighbors, or lose access to their primary source of life-giving water. An appellate court later reversed this decision in 2011, ruling that the Army Corps actually possessed the legal authority to allocate water for local municipal needs under federal law. Florida petitioned the Supreme Court of the United States in 2014 claiming that Georgia's consumption had caused an ecological collapse that permanently damaged the delicate balance of the coastal estuary. The once flourishing oyster population in the Apalachicola Bay fell by nearly 90% after the freshwater flow from the north was restricted to serve the thirsty population of Atlanta. The Supreme Court justices eventually ruled in favor of Georgia in 2021, stating that Florida had failed to prove that Georgia's water use was the primary cause of the collapse. Alabama finally withdrew its legal challenges in February of 2026, bringing an official end to 35 years of expensive litigation that cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of precious dollars. Although Georgia won the legal war in the highest courts, a judicial decree cannot force the clouds to produce rain or prevent the lake from disappearing during the next climate disaster. Tensions between the three states remain high as they compete for a limited resource that is increasingly threatened by rising global temperatures and unpredictable weather patterns across the American Southeast. The legal victory provides a false sense of security for millions of residents who believe that a court ruling can somehow guarantee an infinite supply of water from a finite lake. Thousands of square miles of the Apalachicola-Chattahoochee-Flint River Basin continue to suffer from the lack of a comprehensive water management plan that satisfies the needs of all three competing states. Please subscribe to our channel to follow this ongoing environmental investigation and discover more hidden stories about the complex relationship between human civilization and the natural world in our series. The flash drought of 2024 arrived with unprecedented speed, dropping Georgia's total rainfall to just 4% of its typical autumn average. Within a single month of intense heat, climate scientists monitor the emerging La Niña weather pattern, which is expected to bring significantly drier and warmer winters to the southeast throughout 2025 and early 2026. The metropolitan population of Atlanta is projected to increase by nearly 3 million new residents by 2050, putting an unsustainable burden on a reservoir that is already struggling to cope. Rising global temperatures mean that by 2050, Atlanta will experience nearly 100 days each year with temperatures exceeding 90 degrees Fahrenheit, dramatically increasing the rate of lake evaporation. The city recently completed the Bellwood Quarry project to store 2,400,000,000 gallons of water, yet this massive effort only provides a few weeks of backup supply. This additional reservoir acts as a temporary life jacket rather than a permanent rescue boat for a city that is rapidly outgrowing its natural resources every single year of development. Modern hydrological models suggest that the current infrastructure was designed for the climate of the 1950s and cannot withstand the extreme fluctuations of the 21st century weather patterns. Urban developers continue to build massive luxury apartment complexes and sprawling suburban neighborhoods without securing any new long-term water sources to sustain these millions of additional future consumers. The paradox of Lake Lanier is that its deceptive beauty hides the structural failure of a system that is being pushed far beyond its original engineering limits by human demand. If another drought, like the one in 2007, occurs today, the economic impact would be measured in billions of dollars lost due to total industrial shutdown. Local governments often prioritize short-term economic gains from real estate taxes over the long-term security of the very water that makes these profitable investments possible in the first place. Public awareness remains dangerously low, as most residents assume that the water will always flow from their faucets, regardless of the climatic conditions or the status of the lake. Future generations may look back at our current management of Lake Lanier as a classic example of human arrogance in the face of a changing and increasingly hostile environment. The mathematical reality of growing demand and shrinking supply creates a ticking time bomb that will eventually explode if we do not find a revolutionary new solution very soon. Every drop of water saved today represents a small extension of the clock for a city that is currently living on borrowed time and a very thin margin of safety. Please subscribe to our channel right now to support our independent investigative journalism and help us reach more people with these vital stories about our planet's most precious resources. Lake Lanier currently provides nearly 70% of the drinking water for the entire Atlanta metropolitan area, yet its tranquil surface hides a dark history of submerged ghost towns. Beneath the emerald green water lies a hidden world of 20 separate cemeteries and the remains of hundreds of family homes that were abandoned 7 decades ago. Divers often describe the haunting sight of ancient trees standing perfectly upright in the darkness, looking like skeletal fingers waiting to grab anyone who ventures too close. The cracked asphalt of the Gainesville Looper Speedway remains frozen in time under 50 feet of water, waiting for the next severe drought to reveal its silent grandstands. Every successful recovery from a drought gives the residents of Georgia a false sense of security, while the margin between survival and total catastrophe shrinks every single year. Millions of people are currently living on a dangerous promise that the sky never signed, trusting an aging reservoir that was never truly designed to sustain such massive growth. The lake will always look peaceful in the morning light, even as the ghosts of the past continue to whisper their secrets from the dark and muddy depths below. Future crises are inevitable as the climate continues to change, proving that our modern civilization is much more fragile than we are willing to admit during times of plenty. Please subscribe to our channel right now to join our community and discover more deep investigations into the hidden mysteries that shape the world we live in today.